Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. You can quit drinking. You can stop creating new disasters. You can become responsible, honest, dependable, and completely different from the person you were when you were drinking, and still lie awake at night thinking about the things you did. The way you treated your spouse, the scenes you caused, the lies you told, the things your children saw, the relationships you damaged, the people you embarrassed, the moments when you were selfish, irrational, mean, controlling, or completely out of control. You know you want to be different now, but you still have no idea how to forgive yourself for what you did. So today we're going to talk about self-forgiveness in recovery, because self-forgiveness is not pretending the damage didn't happen, and it's not demanding that other people get over it, right? It's definitely not deciding that 20 minutes into sobriety, you should get a parade and have everybody's complete trust and endless pats on the back. Self-forgiveness comes from understanding who you were, taking responsibility for what you did, and becoming someone who doesn't continue causing the same damage. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. One of the things I hear from people all the time is, how do I forgive myself? And you may not understand the deeper layers of this, thinking like, I don't deserve forgiveness. That is often the deeper layer underneath it, but that's not necessarily how you understand it. What you understand is that you can't stop thinking about the things you did. You can't stop replaying it, beating yourself up for it. You can't look at your older children without remembering the kind of parent you were when you were drinking. You see the strained relationship. You feel the distance. You know your child remembers things you wish never happened. Maybe you cheated in a relationship. Maybe you started ridiculous fights or acted crazy in front of other people and embarrassed your partner. Maybe you said mean things, or you were controlling, or you overreacted or made every situation about you. A lot of us have been the black sheep in our families. We were the ones making crazy decisions. We couldn't cope with life as well as others. And some are highly reactive or emotional. Sometimes just a complete mess, and certainly more of a mess than the other people in our families appear to be. And when you've been that person for a long time, you know people look at you differently. You can feel it. You know they remember. And even after you stop drinking, you may still see yourself through their eyes. Here's the first thing I want you to understand. When you were drinking, you were operating as a completely different version of yourself. And it wasn't the truest version of you. It was a distorted, compromised, uninhibited version of you. Your judgment was compromised. Your ability to weigh risks and consequences was compromised. Your emotions were exaggerated. Your inhibitions were lowered. Your ability to pause, to think through your options, tolerate discomfort, and make a rational decision was not functioning the way it normally would. That doesn't mean the things you did didn't matter. It doesn't mean other people weren't hurt, and it doesn't magically erase the consequences. And understanding why something happened is not the same as saying it was acceptable, right? I did a lot of unacceptable shit. But those decisions are also not proof that you are a fundamentally terrible person. They're proof that you repeatedly put yourself into a grossly compromised state of mind and made decisions from inside that state. For me, I didn't carry a tremendous amount of guilt and shame into my sobriety. Like once I understood that the drunk version of me is just a whole different entity, I could see very clearly that the person I became while drinking was compromised and weird. And I also understood something else incredibly important. As long as I didn't take a drink, I didn't become that version of myself. I didn't make those same compromised decisions. I didn't create the same kind of chaos. So the first part of the solution was very simple to me. Don't fucking drink. If alcohol is what turns you into that irrational, uninhibited, emotionally volatile version of yourself, then stop putting alcohol in your body. And maybe your version of the compromised version is, sleeping through things, being tired, being shitty and short-tempered with people, missing deadlines, just not functioning at your optimal level because you're always recovering from alcohol, or a lot of your energy goes into planning your next drinking thing, right? Maybe that's your version. But once you understand alcohol is what triggers that version of you, then stop putting alcohol in your body. That prevents the alcohol distorted version of you from taking over again. And this is where self-forgiveness begins. Not with convincing yourself that the past didn't matter, but with understanding why you behaved that way and taking responsibility for becoming different. The compromised version was still you, and you're responsible for those choices. But that tiny sliver of a version is not the entirety of who you are. And you don't have to carry that version moving forward. Stopping drinking prevents that version from taking control again. That's sobriety, right? Sobriety is quitting the substance. Recovery is what comes next. Because although alcohol made everything worse, alcohol was not the only problem. I still had the same dysfunctional coping skills underneath that. I still wanted instant gratification, immediate relief. I still wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. Maybe that instant gratification was having a drink. Maybe it was buying something I didn't need. Maybe it was starting a fight with my boyfriend because I wanted his attention. Maybe it was reacting emotionally because I didn't know how to sit with feeling ignored or disappointed or insecure or uncomfortable. When I was drinking, I was wounded and broken. I did the best I could with the skills I had. But often at that stage, my best was still destructive. Were those skills amateur and dysfunctional? Absolutely. But they were the only skills I had. And understanding that doesn't excuse the damage, but it explains why I needed recovery, better skills, and a completely different way of living. Recovery is how I leveled up those amateur skills. I had to learn delayed gratification. I had to learn patience. I had to learn how to tolerate discomfort. I had to learn how to hear no, how to not get my way and handle that with some grace. I had to stop believing that every uncomfortable emotion required an immediate reaction. I had to dig deeper and heal the dysfunctional parts of me that created chaos even when alcohol wasn't present. That's why recovery is different from sobriety. Sobriety removes the substance. Recovery changes the person. And that's what gives you the opportunity to stop making those shitty choices forever. Self-forgiveness doesn't come from telling yourself you weren't responsible because you were drinking. It comes from knowing that you're taking responsibility now. You're doing the work. You're developing the skills. You're becoming someone who can experience life and its challenges without blowing up your life or someone else's. That's how you begin separating what you did from who you are or who you're becoming. Okay, before we continue, I have to tell you that Cozy Earth's Labor Day sale is happening right now. And this is the time to get the things you've been eyeing because everything is 30% off. I am obsessed with their loungewear because the fabrics are so incredibly soft. I told one of my clients about the joggers and she bought 3 pairs and she loves them. 3 pairs. So clearly I'm not the only one. And then there's the bubble cuddle blanket. You've heard me talk about this before. Everyone is obsessed with this thing. It is the softest, coziest, most amazing blanket ever. And we're getting closer to blanket season. There's nothing better than curling up on the couch or getting into bed with a ridiculously soft blanket when the weather starts cooling down. So whether you want to upgrade your loungewear, grab one of these incredible blankets, or finally invest in better bedding, this is the sale to do it. Cozy Earth stands behind everything they make with a 10-year warranty on all bedding and a 100-night sleep trial. If it's not the best sleep of your life, send it back. And Cozy Earth's Labor Day sale is only happening August 25th through September 8th, so don't wait. Head to cozyearth.com and use my code Angela for an exclusive 30% off home and sleepwear. That's code Angela for an exclusive 30% off, our biggest savings of the season. And if you see a post-purchase survey, mention that you heard about Cozy Earth right here on Addiction Unlimited. Now we have to talk about trust, because this is where you can get incredibly frustrated when you're newly sober. You stop drinking and you want everyone to recognize how hard you're working. You want people to celebrate you. You want your spouse to trust you. You want your kids to believe you. You want your family to stop looking at you like you could explode or relapse at any moment. You want a huge party and endless pats on the back because you've been sober for 20 minutes. We alcoholics want instant gratification in every possible way. We want to create years of instability and then have everybody relax because we haven't had a drink since Tuesday, right? But here's the truth. They shouldn't trust us. We haven't been trustworthy. Especially if you've relapsed 1,000 times, especially if you've repeatedly promised this time is different. They have no reason to trust your words yet. That isn't them being mean. It isn't them refusing to support you, and it isn't an injustice. It's a reasonable response to what they've experienced. Your first responsibility is to respect them instead of demanding that they respect you after 20 minutes of sobriety. And this is an important part of self-forgiveness. You cannot build self-forgiveness around somebody else's decision to trust or forgive you. If your peace depends on their response, then you're still trying to control the outcome. They're not going to trust what you say. They're going to trust what they can see. They're watching your behavior. They're watching your choices. They're watching how you spend your time. They're watching what happens when you're frustrated or don't get your way. They're watching whether you disappear, create drama, lie, manipulate, blame, or reach for the quickest possible escape. My family trusted me because they watched me do the work. I didn't convince them with a speech. I didn't have to keep telling them I had changed. They watched me change right before their eyes. They watched me go to a meeting every single day. They watched me digest the information, learn about myself, and start growing up in a different way. I was already full-grown, high-functioning adult, but emotionally, I was about 17 years old. Like I talked about a minute ago, I didn't have mature skills for delayed gratification. I didn't know how to be patient or tolerate discomfort. I definitely didn't know how to not get my way and handle that with grace, right? Me not getting my way always resulted in a temper tantrum of some sort. But they watched those things begin to change. They watched me change my life. They watched me spend my time with different people. They watched me go to different places. They watched my decisions change. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I was illustrating my recovery for them. Thankfully, they never had to trust my words because I was a fucking liar when I was drinking. They got the luxury of watching me prove my words through my behavior. Your job when you're newly sober is to be committed to your change. Your job is not to whine because nobody has recognized you for not drinking this week when they know you could yank the rug out from under them at any moment. So show them. Stop demanding recognition. Stop making everything about you. Start thinking about how you can create stability and security for the people who love you. That's part of how you begin repairing the damage. But even if you do all of that, nobody owes you forgiveness. The people you hurt are allowed to have their own experiences. They're allowed to have their own feelings. They don't need your approval for those feelings. Respect them. Sometimes your demand for forgiveness exposes another layer of selfishness, right? You want them to forgive you so you can feel better. You want them to say, oh, it's okay, it's all good, so you can stop feeling guilty. You want them to reconcile because their distance is uncomfortable for you. Once again, it's all about you. But if you made the mess, then you need to be willing to respect the other person's process. You need to respect their timeline. You need to give them whatever space they need. And then you have to learn how to cope with the discomfort of not getting what you want. That's recovery. If someone chooses not to reconcile with you, that doesn't mean you're a terrible person. And if they don't want a relationship with you today, that doesn't mean they'll never want one. It means that's how they feel right now. And your responsibility is not to force a different outcome. Your responsibility is to continue becoming different. Because if you stop drinking, but never grow up or recover or heal, your behavior in that relationship will stay exactly the same. If you were controlling or mean, insulting, self-serving, irrational, codependent, or a helicopter parent, and you stop drinking but don't change any of those behaviors, then why would they want to reconcile? They already know what happens the second they enter a conversation with you. It becomes the same old bullshit they wanted to get away from. Stopping drinking is essential, but it doesn't automatically make you emotionally safe. Recovery is how you become emotionally safer. Recovery is how you learn to love people without controlling them. It's how you care without making their feelings about you. It's how you tolerate their boundaries without punishing them. It's how you allow someone else to have an experience you don't like without demanding that they change it for your comfort. And every day you stay sober and live differently, you're still repairing that relationship. Even if they don't acknowledge it, even if they aren't ready, even if the relationship isn't restored, your recovery still matters. Your self-forgiveness cannot be conditional on getting the ending you want. If you say, I can only forgive myself if my child forgives me, then you're placing another responsibility on the person you hurt. Now your child is somehow responsible for releasing you from your guilt. That's not their job. Your job is to respect their experience and continue living in a way that reflects your growth. That's the work you control. Now, I want to touch briefly on amends because this is another place where you may want to jump ahead. The formal amends process that we talk about as part of AA and working the 12 steps. There is a process, there is a time for it. There's guidance around how to do it, when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate, and may create more harm than good. A formal amends is not an apology tour you launch 3 days after you stop drinking because you desperately want everybody to forgive you. When you're newly sober, you may want to jump right into amends because you think it'll give you immediate relief. You want to unload the guilt. You want reassurance. You want the other person to say, I forgive you. You want the relationship fixed now. Again, instant gratification. And again, self-serving. If you're doing AA, work with the person guiding you through the steps. They'll walk you through how to do this. Don't rush ahead and turn amends into another way of demanding emotional relief from someone you hurt. And if you're not in AA, that doesn't mean you can't take responsibility or repair harm, but you should still think carefully before impulsively confessing everything, reopening old wounds, or forcing someone into a conversation because you want to feel better, right? An apology can be appropriate. Taking responsibility can be appropriate. But your desire to get something off your chest does not automatically make that conversation helpful to the other person. You have to consider what they need, not only what will make you feel better. And there's another kind of amends we talk about in recovery, and it's called living amends. A living amends is how you make things right through the way you live every day. You stay sober, you become honest, you become dependable, you give your time, you become available to other people, you volunteer, you do thoughtful things without being asked, you give something of yourself without demanding praise, recognition, forgiveness, or any particular response. And I want to make a very clear distinction here. Living amends is not people pleasing. People pleasing is its own dysfunction. A lot of the time, it's manipulation disguised as generosity, right? I'll do this so you approve of me. I'll help you so you need me. I'll make myself indispensable so you won't leave me. I'll give you everything so you'll forgive me. There's still an invisible contract attached to it. And again, it's all about you. Living amends doesn't carry that contract. You give because you understand what was given to you. You contribute because you're no longer organizing your entire life around yourself. You show love because you've developed the capacity to love differently. I did a lot of living amends with my mom. When I was drinking, I would blow through all my money and she would let me come work for her. And sometimes I was fantastic and sometimes I was absolutely worthless. But she continued giving me the opportunities because she loved me. So when I got sober, I would go work for her for free as part of my living amends. I wasn't trying to buy her forgiveness. She wasn't even mad at me. I wasn't trying to force her to recognize how wonderful and sober I had become. I wanted to show her that I had grown up. I wanted her to know that I understood the sacrifices she had made because she loved me. And now it was my turn to return that love. That wasn't one dramatic conversation, right? It wasn't an apology that erased everything. I lived it. Every time I showed up, every time I helped, every time I followed through, every time I gave without expecting something in return, I was becoming a different person right in front of her. And that's how living amends supports self-forgiveness. You're no longer sitting around obsessing about what a terrible person you were. You're using that awareness to become more loving, more useful, more dependable, and less self-centered now. You can't go back and change what happened, but you can decide what that past creates in you today. Does it create endless shame and self-punishment? Or does it create humility and responsibility, compassion, and a commitment to live differently? That's how you begin making peace with the past. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You don't have to minimize the damage. You don't have to deny that the compromised version of you was still you. And you don't have to punish yourself forever to prove that you understand what you did was wrong. Punishing yourself does not repair anybody. It does not give your children a different childhood. It doesn't heal your marriage. It doesn't erase the embarrassment or fear or instability you created. It just keeps you emotionally trapped in the same period of your life. Responsibility asks you to do something more useful. Take an honest look at what you did. Understand the conditions and dysfunctional skills that contributed to it. Stop drinking. Recover. Develop better skills. Respect the experiences and boundaries of the people you hurt. Allow trust to grow at their pace instead of demanding it on yours. Make living amends through the way you behave now. Become someone who doesn't continue creating the same damage. Self-forgiveness is not saying it didn't matter. It's saying it mattered enough for me to change. You don't repair the past by wanting everybody else's forgiveness. You repair it by becoming trustworthy, even when nobody promises you the outcome you want. And maybe that's when you finally begin to forgive yourself, not because the past disappeared, not because everyone else forgave you, not because every relationship was restored, but because you know with absolute certainty that you're no longer living as the person who created the damage. You have proof. You can see it in your choices. You can see it in how you handle discomfort. You can see it in how you treat people. You can see it in your honesty and your consistency. You can see it in all the moments when you could have fallen back into an old pattern and you chose something different. That's the foundation of self-forgiveness. Not one dramatic decision to release yourself from the past, but a daily practice of becoming someone you respect and trust. So, if you're struggling to forgive yourself for what you did while you were drinking, I want you to remember this. You were making decisions from inside a grossly compromised state. Your judgment was distorted. Your emotions were exaggerated, your inhibitions were lowered, and you were trying to cope with life using whatever amateur dysfunctional skills you had available to you at the time. That explains the behavior. It doesn't excuse it, and it doesn't mean you have to carry it as your identity forever. The first part of the solution is to stop drinking so you stop becoming the compromised version of yourself. But the next part is recovery. Some relationships may be restored and some may not be, but your self-forgiveness can't depend on getting the outcome you want from somebody else. It has to be built through what you do now. You stay sober, you recover, you get honest, you become dependable, you stop repeating the same harmful patterns. And you allow the person you are today to become stronger evidence of your character than the worst things you did in your past. That's how you start to forgive yourself. Because endless guilt does not make you a better person. Punishing yourself does not repair the damage. Shame keeps you staring backward at a life you can't change. Recovery teaches you how to use that past to create a life you can be proud of moving forward. You become more present. You become more emotionally stable, more trustworthy, more capable of loving people without controlling them, and more confident that no matter what happens, you can cope with your life without destroying yourself or the people around you. That is self-forgiveness. Not forgetting, not excusing, not pretending it didn't happen, not pretending it didn't matter, but understanding that it mattered enough for you to change. If you're sober but still struggling with guilt and damaged relationships, emotional immaturity, or the same dysfunctional patterns that followed you out of drinking, this is the work we do in recovery. Quitting alcohol is just the beginning. Recovery is how you build the emotional skills, the self-respect, the stability to create a completely different life. And if you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and do the deeper work, and you want to do it with me, then book a call with me and see if we're a good fit to do that work together. addictionunlimited.com/call. We have great conversations on these calls, and make sure you schedule a time that you can show up and be present with me. Come ready to be honest, ready to have some laughs, ready to do some work that is way more fun than you probably think, and come ready to become someone you can trust and respect and like. I didn't know it in my beginning, but being able to trust myself is one of the most incredible gifts I got from recovery. And I never thought I could like myself. I was so disgusted by myself and my choices in my life, and my inability to cope with my life. I never thought I could like me. That's what recovery gives you. And I'd love to be a part of your journey. addictionunlimited.com/call. And when you become someone you can trust, you finally have a reason to stop defining yourself by the worst things you did. Until next time, my friend, I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.